91-year-old woman paid a regular visit to the doctor, but the unexpected happened. Estela Melendez, 91, had had a particularly difficult year. Her husband had died, and her health was rapidly deteriorating. Estela had to be taken far from her village to the nearest hospital after experiencing pain from a fall, only to find something that would shock her, the doctors, and the entire globe. She was pregnant. If you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Please subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and click that notification bell to get amazed by these real-life stories every day. And now, let's continue our story. Estela Melendez, 91, and her husband Manuel Gonzalez were living a life that many would consider graced. They decided to share an inseparable bond that had carried them through an incredible 74 years of marriage in the tiny Pacific coastal community of La Boca, Chile, and several hours outside of the capital of Santiago. While the two weren't exactly living in luxury, the simple life they led provided for them. Manuel's work as a boater and fisherman guaranteed that the couple always had enough food to eat. Nevertheless, through January of 2015, Estela's life would undertake significant changes, provoking a series of events that would culminate in an incredible revelation. Her 74-year marriage would finally come to an end when she awoke one day to find Manuel had peacefully passed away. At the age of 91 years old, Estela, who is only a year younger, would struggle with the daily realities of living alone at home, managing the house alone, and cooking for one. The loss must have been unmeasurable after spending 3/4 of a century creating a life with her life partner. They already had too many experiences to count, and some of them were better left overlooked. They both had one major regret. Estela and Manuel were always remorseful about their inability to have a family. It was something they both wished for, but they kept going. They discovered that Estela was unable to conceive and get pregnant. Estela simply stated that they had a hard times greatly as a result of not having a family to elevate. Estela's inability to have a child remained unknown. For decades, she would learn that she had a long-standing tumor in her uterus only a few years before her husband died. This could have been the case all along, but she quickly realized that the tumor would be the smallest of her problems. By the year following Manuel's death, the widow Estela would be dealing with several health problems. Her hearing would worsen over time, and her mobility would rapidly deteriorate. On top of that, she developed a severe case of arthritis, and things only got worse again from there. Things would change after her 91st birthday, when Estela would trip and fall while tending to her home, despite the fact that her body was already slowing down substantially. While the fall did not result in lasting harm, it was a wake-up call for the older lady, and she realized she needed to make some changes in her life. Estela had noticed that her body was giving way, as performing basic tasks on her own started to necessitate a great deal of effort. She called a friend and requested for a ride to Claudio of Cunha Hospital in San Antonio. It wasn't just a 4-block walk to see her doctor. She'd have to find someone who could drive her 40 miles. Concerned about Stella's fall, the doctors wanted her to have a full-body X-ray. The doctor knew that at her age, she couldn't afford to sustain any serious injuries. During the X-ray procedure, they would discover something that would take them completely by surprise. They thought that we're just looking at something they'd seen before, a second tumor. Tumors were nothing new to her. She had battled cancer in the 1980s. Nevertheless, in order to be certain of their findings, the doctor decided to perform a second X-ray, which is when they discovered that they had been completely wrong about Estela's condition. After carefully examining their discovery, they concluded that Estela had never had a tumor in the first place. What she was carrying within her was far more serious than a simple tumor. Stella was technically expecting a child. She'd been carrying the fragments of a long-dead fetus, but the biggest surprise came when they discovered how long it had been inside of her. After examining the fetus, doctors were able to conclude that she had been pregnant with it for 60 years. The news was shocking. The reality of Estela's situation shocked her doctors, and many locals in their corner of Chile, as she appeared to be deprived of this ability while her unborn child was unknowingly inside of her for more than a half-century. Many people had never heard of such a dreadful condition. But As it did turn out, Stella's condition wasn't as enigmatic as many people thought. Stella's condition is known as lithopedion, and it affects a small percentage of women worldwide. Lithopedions, or stone babies, are the names given to these fetuses. These one-of-a-kind specimens are the result of a fetus developing outside of a pregnant woman's womb. These fetuses are highly hazardous for both mother and child. And if not treated quickly, the condition can lead to the death of both if the fetus is small and underdeveloped. It can be absorbed progressively by the pregnant mother's body. This was not the case with Estella. What doctors discovered in this older lady was unprecedented in modern history. The fetus will not be assimilated by the mother if it is too advanced. It instead calcifies in the uterus. People who have a stone baby will usually go into surgery to have it eliminated. Unfortunately, the doctors largely decided that this would not be a viable option for Estella, who is 91 years old. She wasn't going to make it through surgery. Estella eventually stated that she didn't really mind because it reminded her of her dead husband. While the news of the stone baby spread, another tragic event was added to an already difficult time in her life. Not everything the doctor told her was negative. On the one hand, Estelle and her husband's greatest ambition had been right under their noses the entire time and didn't even have the chance to notice. While this is horrific, Estella deposed a belief that had frequently made her feel terrible. For the majority of her life, she had spent her entire life feeling like she was a lot littler than everyone else. Estella had to witness her sisters and friends having children while she stayed child-free in a time and place where raising kids was the norm. It was an unbelievable revelation, and she couldn't simply return home from the hospital and resume her peaceful life. It wasn't something that everyone around Estella was going to graze on and ignore for over a half-century. As word spread on a global scale, people all over the world were fascinated by this elderly woman and wanted to learn more about her story. Estella soon found herself in the middle of a media storm. The Washington Post, ABC, NBC, and CNN all raced to Chile to learn more about the elderly woman's story. While most people would expect the elderly woman to burst into tears in the face of such stress, her response surprised the audience. When the world first met Estella Melendez, they might have assumed they were looking at someone who had been damaged by life. And besides, no one can expect a woman to be in the best of spirits after losing her husband of 74 years and uncovering a 60-year-old fetus inside of her. Estella, on the other hand, sat in front of the cameras, calm and poised. She clasped her cane and spoke with grace while clutching her cane and looking at the interviewer with observant eyes. Despite having been through a string of tragic events, the woman appeared to be as solid as a rock, which elicited an unexpected response. Estella had endured adversity that most of us will never know. People were perplexed and saddened just hearing about it. Julie, a woman, summed up public opinion with her comment, "That's so sad. It could have made her husband happy if they had discovered it sooner." But the young lady's remark didn't stop there. What do you think her husband's reaction was going to be if he ever found out? On a more somber note, she said that one way of looking at it is that they did have a child and she carried it around with her for 60+ years. And now, because they won't take it away, she carries a piece of him with her in an unusual way. Many people were perplexed, but some others found the story oddly approachable. Estella's disease, on the other hand, isn't something you hear about every day. Lauren Pearl, a reader, left a comment on the story, and she described how her sister was also pregnant with a stone baby. And according to doctors, Lauren explained that the same thing happened to her sister. She had no clue until she was pregnant. It was her own twin. As odd as it sounds, it isn't an unusual matter. What a story, right? What did you guys think about it? Don't forget to share your thoughts with us and to subscribe.